Okay, so our speaker today is Eric Robinson. Eric Robinson is one of the founders of the San Diego Beekeeping Society, which has added over 700 new members in the last 4 years. 700, that doesn't seem like a lot of bees.
It's people that...
Oh. Eric has kept bees in Southern California for over 8 years. He's presented lectures on bees in schools, libraries, and social organizations, and has been interviewed by local news stations and by National Public Radio. Working to develop a locally adapted strain of honeybee that is resistant to pesticides but still docile, Eric has provided bees to UCSD for research on colony collapse disorder, and has worked with San Diego city government to allow regulated beekeeping within the city.
Both of his grandfathers and his father took courses in beekeeping at Cornell University and were beekeepers throughout their lives. Eric also owns a company that produces components for leak-proof fluid delivery, some fittings for which are on the Curiosity Rover currently exploring Mars. Eric will stay after the assembly to answer all your questions, so please hold them until then. Let's welcome Eric Robinson.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for having me come speak about bees today. I want to give the drones a little bit of respite from that abuse they just took. So drones they're the only males in the hive, right? It's a totally female dominated. The queen's in charge. Workers do all the work. They work themselves to death. They actually only live a couple of weeks, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, because they work so hard. But the drones, they're there for one thing only. That's to mate with the queen, and she tries to have a very wild weekend. When she first gets out, she wants to mate with at least 15 drones. She has to get a lot of diversity in her DNA. And actually, bees can select a queen based on how much diversity she has. So that's something that's, like, I don't know how they do that, but they figure it out. And they want to have a lot of diversity just in case something weird happens. They want to have some bees that can survive. But yeah, the drones are tossed. At the end of the season, they get thrown out of the hive. They've outlived their usefulness. Their only real need is to mate that queen.
Maybe it's a metaphor.
And they actually do die in the process of mating. So if they're bragging, it means they're lying. So I'm a space nerd. I've got parts on Mars. I've got parts in the asteroid belt. I've got parts on James Webb Space Telescope. And so that's what I do with my regular life. But this is something I inherited from my parents. So this is when I first started beekeeping. My neighbor said, "Hey, I've got these bees hanging in this arbor. Can you come take them away? They're going to cost $175 to kill them." That seems like a lot to kill them. So I put on my wedding veil. I went over to my ski outfit, and I took them in a bag and took them away to a park and released them. Well, it turned out I got the queen, but I didn't get all the bees. They came back the next day. I wasn't really much of a beekeeper at the time. I didn't really realize what I had done. So I bought a box. I put those bees in the box, but they had no queen, so they died out. But then I had the box, and other bees moved in, so I became a beekeeper. This is me out in the middle of the harbor out here taking bees off a ship. They're attracted to the color yellow, and that yellow there, the swarm, like that yellow color, they went on there, so I went out to that ship and I took the bees off there to move them into a new location where they could live. So this is why we have bees in the first place. They're really great for pollination. Those candles down there, you can buy wax of different colors and you can wrap it and roll it and turn it into candles, which is kind of a fun project for adults and kids. And then, of course, honey. But there's also, there's a couple of products that bees make that are used for immune issues. You can make tea out of them and things like that. Real jelly. So here's the worker. That's the main thousands and thousands of workers. Every frame of bees in a box has 2,000 workers on it. And then the drones, there's several hundred of those during the summertime, during the mating season, but in the winter they're gone. And that's the queen. She's the boss. She's in charge. Her pheromones kind of control the hive. And the temperament of the hive is based on the queen. If you've got a mean queen, you got a problem. They're going to keep getting meaner all the time. So what we typically do is, if we get a really bad, mean queen, like we have Africanized bees here in Southern California, that we typically take the brood and the honey out of that hive and give it to a queen we like. So we kind of move their bank account over into this new hive, so that way we don't have to kill the old hive, and we weaken it to a point where we can, dismiss it as something which is irrelevant because she can't continue on. But the nice bees, we like to keep boosting them. So we are self-selecting the bees. There's about 70% Africanization in San Diego, about 80% in Mexico. As you go closer to Brazil, it gets pretty bad. So as you go farther north, it gets less and less. So I was talking to Brian from Canada. They probably don't have any problems with Africanized bees in Canada where he's from. So that's the queen. She's got a little white or yellow spot on her. There's 5 colors that they use for queens based on what year she was born. And so every 5 years they cycle through those colors, and you can tell how old she is. And typically in commercial beekeeping, they would replace the queen every couple of years. This is all the plants would be missing if we didn't have beekeeping. So this is a lot of interesting, delicious food that we have brought from other parts of the world, and we brought the bees with them to pollinate. So bees aren't native to California, but they are here now because we brought them here to pollinate our food. This is how you get a queen in the mail. This is a U.S. This is actually probably be more like a FedEx or a UPS overnight, because you got to have them pretty much as quick as they get there. So in the hive is she has little bees that take care of her and feed her, and you can take her and put her into a new hive. And if the hive is really Africanized, it's a little bit more difficult. You take the hive and you move it to a new location, and you put a catch hive at the old location. So now in the new location, that hive is where you put the queen, because all the old bees go back to the original location, but the new bees, the young bees, are in the new hive. And my example is like this: if you had baby wolves, they would nurse from a dog. They don't care. They'll nurse from anything because they're just babies. That's the way these new young bees will take a new queen, whereas the old bees would probably just eat it for lunch. So that's why we do that type of a separation. It's hard to requeen Africanized bees unless you do that kind of a separation. That's something we learned here in San Diego. So this is how we catch bees. These bees, it's maybe hard to tell what's going on here. There's a little one-way bee door we put plaster around it, so that door allows bees to come out of this hollow tree. And then what are they going to do? They're going to move into a new hive. And we have comb inside the hive, and the comb smells like free rent furnished apartment. So that's why they move into there. So they move into the new hive, and they come out of the tree, and so then we can take them and put them where they can go do some pollination. That's me crawling under a shed. The whole underside of that shed was bee comb. It was a huge beehive. Anyway, so that was probably the biggest beehive I ever saw. It was 10 feet square. Anyway, so we did take those bees, put them into boxes, little by little. We probably had 5 beehives came out of there, and then moved them off somewhere else where they could pollinate. This is what it looks like when you take comb out of a location. You wire it and put it back into frames and put it in the box, and that way they can they'll attach it to the sides, and you can take the wire out. We use rubber bands now. Rubber bands are easier because the bees can chew through them and take them and throw them out the front door when they're done with it. They actually do that. That's a queen at the bottom. She's the best looking bee in the hive. So that's some weird places I found bees. There's a mannequin that had some bees living in his body that we found. This is what a beehive looks like. Typical beehive. You can buy it for a couple $100 to get bees in a beehive if you're interested in beekeeping. And we did make it legal to keep bees in San Diego now, so you can do that legally. When our club first started, you couldn't do it. And this is just different things. So colony collapse disorder is basically based on pesticides, which are legal in the U.S., which we've now forbidden in different European countries. You can't use neonicotinoids. It's based on the nicotine molecule. What it does, it doesn't kill the bees, but it destroys their navigation ability, so you end up not with a bunch of dead bees, but an empty beehive. Where they all flew away, and they couldn't come back, and they couldn't figure out their way to get home. So that's neonicotinoids. If you go to Home Depot and look up, 40% of the pesticides in Home Depot have this in it. It's called imidacloprid, is the actual name for the compound that's in there, and it's like I said, illegal in Italy, Germany, France. And they've had, I think, more of a recovery since they got rid of it. So it's our EPA. not doing their job. There's some pesticides, yeah, so you can, if you're interested in beekeeping, you can join the Beekeeping Society. It meets every second Monday of the month in Menlo Park. You can look it up online. So this is colony collapse disorder. They've done a lot of studies with this at UCSD, and like I said, we've given them our bees. When all their bees died, we had to support them with our bees to keep the study going. Anyway, so I think that everything you look at on that list, it's really it's the pesticides that are the key. Other things happen, other animals, there's mites that come in there, there's larvae. Different animals will attack bees when they're weak, but if they're strong enough, they can keep the ants at bay, they can keep other insects from coming in and robbing their honey. So it's pesticide based, pretty much is, I think, the biggest problem. Yeah, I am wearing shorts. I'm not naked. That was me when I looked like 10 years ago. My kids are now this, they're taller than me. So that's what they looked like when they were in beekeeping outfits back in the good old days. All right, so.
Are they twins?
Yeah. Oh, no, they're, Irish twins. They're 13 months apart. All right, so am I done with my time?
You're good.
All right.
You're good.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.